The smell of smoke never truly leaves you. Not the acrid, choking stench of a house fire, nor the greasy residue of burning plastic, but the memory of it. It clings to your clothes, your hair, the very pores of your skin, long after the last ember dies. For Jack Rook Callahan, it was the ghost that followed him into the manicured purgatory of Oakhaven Estates. After 23 years crawling through hellscapes, dragging strangers from collapsing infernos, breathing air thick with despair and soot, Jack had earned his peace. A pension that wouldn't make him rich, but enough. Enough to buy the modest, slightly too small ranch house on Sycamore Lane, the only house in Oakhaven Estates that didn't look like it had been cloned from a billionaire's fever dream. It had a decent-sized backyard, shaded by an ancient oak, perfect for the quiet life he craved. Perfect, he thought, for forgetting the screams that still echoed in his dreams. He should have known better. Oakhaven Estates wasn't just a neighborhood, it was a meticulously curated diorama of suburban perfection, governed by the iron fist of the Oakhaven Estates Homeowners Association, HOA, led by its self-appointed Grand Inquisitor, Brenda Thorne. Brenda wasn't just the HOA president, she was its high priestess, its chief aesthetic enforcer, its moral compass calibrated solely to the HOA covenants, conditions, and restrictions, CC and RS, a 127-page tome thicker than Jack's old turnout gear manual. Her weapon of choice. The violation notice. Delivered with the chilling precision of a scalpel, always printed on crisp, cream-colored paper that somehow felt colder than ice. Jack's first offense. Excessive lawn clippings. He'd mowed his lawn on a Tuesday morning. Tuesday. The CC and RS decreed mowing only on Saturdays between 9 a.m. and 1 p.m., to avoid unnecessary noise disturbance and visual clutter during the workweek. Brenda's notice arrived that afternoon, slipped under his door like a poison pen letter. Jack stared at it, bewildered. He'd spent his career responding to alarms at 3 a.m., hauling hoses through blizzards, listening to the roar of conflagrations that could melt steel. The hum of a lawnmower felt like a lullaby. He tried to comply. He really did. He bought the approved shade of Serenity Sage paint for his front door, replacing the slightly weathered but perfectly functional fire engine red he'd chosen on a whim, a small, defiant nod to his past. He trimmed his hedges to the exact 18-inch height specified. He even invested in a ridiculously expensive, silent electric mower for his Saturday ritual. But the violations kept coming. Like embers reigniting. Unauthorized ornamental placement, his simple, weathered wooden bench under the oak tree. A non-compliant structure requiring HOA pre-approval. Removed. Improper vehicle storage, his trusty, slightly dented Ford F-150 pickup, the one that had hauled him to countless scenes, the one with the faded fire department decal on the back window, parked in the driveway overnight. A visual eyesore violating the residential aesthetic harmony clause. It had to go into the garage. Every single night. Excessive canine vocalization, his rescue mutt, Smokey, named for the soot that clung to him when Jack found him shivering near a burned-out warehouse, dared to bark once when a raccoon wandered into the yard. Brenda cited persistent noise nuisance. Jack felt the old, familiar pressure building in his chest, the same pressure he felt when trapped in a flashover zone. But this wasn't fire, it was suffocation by bureaucracy. He attended HOA meetings, a lone figure in worn flannel amidst a sea of pastel polos and designer athleisure. He spoke calmly, reasonably, about the absurdity of fining a man for owning a truck or sitting on a bench. Brenda would smile thinly, tap her perfectly manicured nails on the polished conference table, and quote Section 7, subsection D, paragraph 3 with the fervor of a zealot. The breaking point came on a sweltering July afternoon. A brutal heatwave gripped the region. Jack, remembering the elderly couple 2 streets over who'd mentioned their AC was struggling, decided to set up a simple kiddie pool in his backyard for Smokey. Just a small, blue plastic pool, filled with cool water. It was tucked discreetly behind the oak, invisible from the street. The next morning, the notice was waiting. Unauthorized water feature installation. Violation of Section 12, no temporary or permanent water features, including but not limited to fountains, ponds, or inflatable pools, are permitted without prior written approval from the Architectural Review Committee. A $250 fine. Immediate removal required. Jack stood in his kitchen, the paper trembling in his hand. The heat pressed in, thick and heavy. He saw not Brenda's smug signature, but the faces of children he'd pulled from smoke-filled rooms, their small bodies limp, their eyes wide with terror. He remembered the desperate parents, the smell of burnt hair, the crushing weight of a life lost because the hydrant was blocked by an illegally parked luxury SUV, an SUV that probably belonged to someone just like Brenda Thorne. A cold fury, deeper and more terrifying than any fire, ignited within him. It wasn't rage, it was the quiet, focused intensity of a man who knew exactly how fragile structures, whether made of wood or petty rules, could be brought down. He didn't remove the pool. Instead, he did something far more dangerous in Oakhaven Estates, he invited. He called a few old brothers from the department. Not for a fight, but for a demonstration. On a Saturday morning, while Brenda was undoubtedly sipping her organic, shade-grown coffee and planning her next aesthetic purge, Jack and 3 retired firefighters, men with faces etched by decades of smoke and sacrifice, gathered in his backyard. They didn't bring hoses. They brought knowledge. One, a former fire investigator, meticulously measured the distance from Jack's back door to the property line, then to the nearest neighbor's window. He consulted the actual fire code, not the HOA's fantasy version. "Brenda," he called out, his voice carrying easily over the manicured lawns, "your precious CC and RS say I can't have a pool for my dog, but they don't mention that your own deck, built right up to the property line without the required 5-foot fire break. That's a Class 3 fire hazard, ma'am. One stray ember from a grill, and your Harmony Haven could be Harmony Inferno before the first engine even clears the station." Another pointed to the dense, untrimmed hedges lining Brenda's pristine yard. "Fuel load, Brenda. Dry as tinder. Perfect for a fast-moving ground fire. Your HOA fines me for clippings, but ignores the kindling you're cultivating." The third, a gentle giant who'd once carried a piano out of a burning building to save a trapped kitten, simply stood by the small blue pool. "This water? It's not just for Smokey. In a real emergency, before the trucks arrive? It's a resource. A bucket brigade starts somewhere. Your rules prioritize looks over lives." Word spread through Oakhaven faster than wildfire. Neighbors who'd silently endured their own petty violations, the wrong mailbox color, the unapproved flower pot, started to murmur. They saw Jack not as a rule breaker, but as the man who'd stared down actual hell and survived, now being crucified for a plastic pool. Brenda Thorne arrived, face flushed crimson, clutching her binder of violations like a shield. "This is a private matter. You are inciting unrest. Violation Notice 4, unauthorized assembly." Jack stepped forward. He wasn't wearing his old uniform, but he carried its weight. He looked Brenda dead in the eye, his voice low but carrying the authority of 1,000 commands given in chaos. "Brenda, you fine me for grass clippings while ignoring real dangers. You care more about the color of my door than whether my neighbor's house could burn down because your rules blocked a fire lane last year. You talk about community, but all you've built is a cage of fear and conformity." He gestured to the small pool, to his friends, to the watching neighbors. "This is my community now. And we're done living in fear of your clipboard. Fix your own hazards, Brenda. Or the next notice you get won't be from the HOA. It'll be from the fire marshal. And I know exactly how to file that report." The silence that followed was profound. Even the cicadas seemed to hush. Brenda's carefully constructed world of control cracked. She sputtered, clutched her binder tighter, and retreated to her perfect, flammable house without another word. The fines stopped. The bench reappeared. Smokey barked freely. Jack's truck sat proudly in the driveway. The HOA meetings became less about enforcing trivial aesthetics and more about actual safety concerns Jack and his brothers were more than willing to advise on, free of charge. Oakhaven Estates didn't become perfect. But the air felt different. Lighter. Less suffocating. The ghost of smoke that clung to Jack. It didn't vanish. But now, when he sat on his bench under the oak, watching Smokey splash in his little blue pool, he didn't just smell the past. He smelled something new, something fragile but real, peace. And the quiet, hard-won understanding that sometimes, the bravest thing a firefighter can do isn't charging into a blaze, but standing firm against the slow, smoldering tyranny of pettiness, protecting the home he finally earned.